Hello, and welcome to my cellar for well, it's number 130, but it's actually a higher number than that. But that's immaterial. I'll scooch up a little here, even though I say I'm supposed to sit back farther. Several things to talk about tonight. I'm going to save one very weighty topic till the very end because there's a number of parts to it. I'm suffering from dry eye tonight. they're watering something fierce. Okay. I'm impressed about the Bard's history and found it interesting. I don't even like the Bard class and could turn over a new leaf. Thanks. Well, yeah, the first edition Bards were pretty interesting, and it took quite a commitment as a player to follow that path, 5 and 3, and then I mean that's 8 levels, and not allowing them to do it at the same time. No multi-classing. So yeah, first level bards were pretty tough, but they were patterned on the troubadours, who were courtly wooers, spellbinding balladeers, and roguish troubadours, who were often scampering ahead of the Lord of the Castle's bailiff at the peril of his neck. Okay, this is an odd comment that I simply don't understand. Awesome stuff, just a fan passing through. Okay, thank you. I really want to be YouTube friends. I don't know what YouTube friends are. I know what Facebook friends are, but I think you might be the second one that asked to be a YouTube friend. I don't even know what that is. So I'm not being stuck up. I just don't know. Next, you have mentioned playing in so many editions of D&D, but what is your preferred? OD, BX, AD&D? OD&D. No question about it. Where my OD&D Frozen Amber was just as it was becoming AD&D, and there's a lot of stuff that in my world that is in AD&D, but that's because it came from the end of OD&D, when the underlying rubric, ethos, whatever, was suggestions, guidelines, not rules. Yeah, you got to be consistent. You can't screw around with your campaign and have something happen one way one time and something happen another way, another time a different way, the same thing, unless you have an underlying reason for it. You can always find an underlying reason for it if it's germane or necessary to the storyline. But you have to have some consistency. I do, I think. Okay, now here's an interesting one. Dear Mr. Kask, well, that's the first mistake. Just Tim will do fine. Mr. Kask retired from being a teacher a long time ago. If a player's in the middle of a fight, rolls her attack successfully, and rolls damage, but realizing that damage will kill the opponent, tells the DM she wants to exercise mercy in order to extort information from him, is she too late? In other words, can good combat and damage rolls be used to impress, for want of a better word, foe into surrender, or is it too late by then? Does the player have to telegraph their intention, or is it okay to change one's mind at the point of rolling damage? P.S. Love the last show. Thanks. Okay, you're welcome. Is it too late? Yeah, at that point, what you explained right there, it's too late. The blow's been struck. Now, there is a way, if this is what you want to do. I see no reason that you couldn't, before the damage was rolled, okay, I hit. Before you roll those damage dice, tell the DM, I do not wish to kill this person. I wish, if you have a reasonable suspicion that you're going to kill them if you get a good die roll, then you tell the DM in advance, if this is what you wish to do, that I'm not trying to kill this person. I want to beat him down to where they can't get up off the ground. Okay. Now we know that the ethic in D&D, the mechanism is avoid the fatal blow. So, okay, by saying you're not trying to kill them, you stop that knife at the point of their jugular. I'd allow that. But no takebacks. What do you mean I cut off his head? I didn't want to cut off his head. I just want to talk to him. You cut off his head. All right? Because I would justify that by the heat of the battle, unless you stop and say this is what you're going to do and indicate that you're not just replying in an animal instinct. You haven't just gone into overdrive and become the kill machine. Sure. Why not? Adds an interesting element. And if you want to call it tell them to surrender, okay. And if they don't, then what? Kill them. I don't know of a simpler answer to that, but I think it's certainly a good idea to. I don't know if it's their prowess would impress them. I think it's the point of cold steel right there below their Adam's apple that would leave the greatest impression, particularly if they have a large Adam's apple and they swallow hard. Might leave a couple of little red marks. Do I have any stories about broken magic wands? No, I actually don't recall one ever being broken. However, funny you should mention magic wands. I have the working prototype for the mechanism to go inside a 3D printed wand that will shoot fireballs 20, 25 feet across the room that consume themselves. So there's no ash, nothing to actually hit. You don't shoot them at anybody unless you're LARPing, I guess. But they don't leave any residue. There's nothing to fall to the ground and start a forest fire. So maybe this fall we'll have something going by then. I got to get with somebody who's an artificer that can copy this mechanism and produce it, perhaps improve on it, and then we'll print them up, line it with an aluminum tube that becomes a barrel, if you will, and. But anyway, that's coming up. Maybe next year at GaryCon. We'll bring up a prototype batch, see if anybody's interested. Hi, Tim. I've enjoyed the stories. Found this after watching a few of your interviews around the web. Oh, okay. Found this. The Curmudgeon. Okay. Love the stories from the past, but really enjoy your insights into gameplay and design. As founding editor of Dragon, perhaps you could give some advice or insight for writers of fantasy RPGs or RPG content. Okay, then there's a follow-up question. I'll deal with this one first. If you're not planning to publish it yourself, and then there's no reason you can't. If you get some good art, you've got a good product, and you can put together a good Kickstarter, you start out small, raise $6,000, print so many, print a couple hundred copies, whatever it takes. And if it does well and you sell out all your excess right away and you can do a second printing, you're on your way. You're not going to get rich, but you're going to get noticed. You're going to get exposure. You'll make some money for your trouble. As far as content, try to be original. Either do something nobody's done before, invent something nobody's invented before, go somewhere nobody's gone before, or do all of those that have been done before in such an enchanting and marvelous way that people go, oh, well, let's all do that over. Let's do those things again. In terms of an RPG, design, well, I'll sound like a curmudgeon. Don't waste your time. Now, having said that, I don't mean to pee on anybody's parade, crush anybody's dream. Once again, if you can come up with a novel design, a hook, if you will, kickstart it. It's the best thing you can do. And if you do kickstart it, fulfill it on time as you promised. If you're going to kickstart it after you get the manuscript in hand. Done. The artwork, at least in work, and you've seen all the others. So that when your Kickstarter completes, you can get that thing sent off right away. It's ready to go. If it doesn't fund, okay, you'd have spent that much time trying to do it on your own anyway. Right? You won't know until you try. All right, second half of this individual's submission here. If you're going to write fantasy, write well about something that somebody hasn't written before, or again, if it is something that's been written about before, do it in a novel fashion. Find a new point of view. Okay. Follow-up question. In the video, you said you didn't design games that you had experience in development. What's the difference between those two terms? The difference between those two terms is a whole lot of work. The developer, okay, takes the designer's product and makes it saleable and understandable. Tinkers with it. Has to understand the motivation behind the game, the connecting tissues of the game. You have to understand that to be a good developer. Sometimes developing a game or redeveloping a game, such as I did once for Avalon Hill, I redeveloped Naval War. Redeveloping meant I went in, I fixed all the typos, I changed a couple of words here or there that were kind of ambiguous, and then I added a whole boatload. Sorry, bad pun, unintentional. I added a lot of optional rules. Now, I got those optional rules from house rules that a bunch of my buddies and I made up over the course of playing the game for several years. And when Avalon Hill approached me, and I asked Tom Shaw, then the president, what my boundaries were, he says, clean it up and make it a better game. And I did. And so I added all the rules. And I didn't add rules willy-nilly. These are rules that we'd all hammered out and worked out over the course of years. Lucky. Another game I developed that was a flop was William the Conqueror 1066. It's a shame that it was a flop. It was partially due to the fact that it was a concept that nobody could quite wrap their head around at the time, and that was diceless combat. I know it sounds horrifying. The scream. But it was actually a very innovative system. It was the first time that minis were wedded onto, actually we used a vinyl or oilcloth or whatever it was back then. We used a wipe-off map that was double-sided. And so we put minis onto a grid map. And we did all three battles of that year. We did Harold coming down from the north. We did the Battle of Stamford Bridge. And we did Senlac Hill, otherwise known as Hastings. And what I did with that was, being a developer, when it's a new game, not a redevelopment, when it's a new game, is very much like being an editor for writing or a magazine, in that it's your function as a developer to take what you've perceived to be a great idea and work it into understandable terms and formats and mechanics that will be acceptable to new players. We we didn't follow that advice with 1066. We did so many firsts in that game. People just blew people away, and it didn't do well, and that's a shame because it was a really excellent game. And I even published the third, because there's two battles in the game, and I published the third one as an expansion in the magazine. And oh well, but that's what a developer does. A developer takes your idea and sees a germ in it that says, yeah, this has got something, and they then hammer, pound, force into the mold to take your wonderful ideas and to make them into something everybody can understand. There's been many conversations recently that parallel those two things, but I don't really care to get into them at this point in time. I generally don't speak ill of the dead in public, but there's been a lot of crap going around about he said, she said. So we'll go. All right. To the discussion of players' unique vision of the description. Very much agree. One of my favorite things is listening to players' retail gameplay events, hearing how they envision the adventures. Well, not only that, I'm going to keep reading. Hearing them remember things that you barely remember mentioning. That's that. All right. You have any instance of getting to hear a player of yours to retell their perspective to another friend? Anything you've been surprised about in retelling? Any new insight gained about your experience by hearing them retell in this manner? Oh, looks like there might have been more on that one. I screwed up. Well, we'll stop there, and I'll go back and look for next week. No. The only campaign that I had constant contact with was the one in Carbondale, and we, being the players on this end of the table and me on this end of the table, we didn't often discuss what went on afterwards, because that was kind of like table talk. You know, what happened during the game happened during the game. However, I have been delighted on many occasions to go around the corner at a con or something and hearing someone tell another person about, whoa, this weird game we just got done playing, it was fun, and then realize, ooh, they're talking, I recognize him, he was in my game. So you hear them talking about your game. That's pretty cool. And back when I had a well-deserved reputation for TPKs, I admit that I got a warm and fuzzy feeling every now and again hearing somebody extol their group about what an amazing TPK their group had suffered at my hands. But no, I don't have occasion for the other. Okay. All right. Okay. This person has a robust agenda, running TAGDQS and WG Greyhawk adventures, using BX and AD&D rules. We did one session in Hamlet so far, and the players enjoy how a simple search for money opens into a druid conspiracy that leads to the moat house. Do you have any advice for running Hamlet and Temple of Elemental Evil? Anything that's not written in the module you wish made the cut? Anything you think should have been edited out? Well, I had to do with Hamlet. I had nothing to do with evil, elemental evil. And so I can't speak to that to the same degree I can speak to Hamlet. Though I can say, if you're going to be playing in Temple of Elemental Evil, a very important axiom of old school. There is no shame in running away to preserve yourself and to come back and fight another day. No shame. We're not playing Bushido. There's no loss of face. No shame. Run away, live to fight another day. That's the Temple of Elemental Evil. Hamlet? No, have fun. I loved playing in Hamlet. I loved it. Keep your mind open. All right, now we're going to get to something that's somewhat more serious and something that's bugging the crap out of me. All right, and I may tick off a few of you. I'll run that risk because I feel I want to address it. Recently, Wizards of the Coast recalled 3 cards, only one of which I'm familiar with that I saw, that in this new woke age are deemed offensive. I wonder where this will end. Several of the WotC 5e designers, and I took great umbrage at a headline saying D&D creators, when no, they're custodians at best. But anyway, D&D writers, I would have been okay with, but no, they didn't create it. Okay. I'll give you some highlights here of this. I'll skip around a little, and I have to put these on to be able to see what I'm looking at. Orcs, Drow, Vistani, and others are due for some big changes as D&D's creative team rethinks races going forward with new books. It seemed that there are changes in the work for humanoids of all shapes, sizes, and colors in D&D after recent discussion reveals a new perspective on certain peoples always being evil. First thing I object to right there, certain peoples. I believe they're talking about monsters. Monsters in the D&D sense is everything that isn't a human or allied with humanity or a human. It's not anything to do about DNA or how long their hair is or how bad they smell and how poor their toilet habits are. We've talked before about certain folks in D&D always being evil, looking at you, orcs, and how depicting them as savage tribal brutes that utilizes the same racist language that is notoriously used to demean people of color kind of undercuts the atmosphere of inclusion and diversity that WOTC, Wizards of the Coast, seems to be advocating for. Add to that portrayals of people like the Vistani and Curse of Strahd as straight-up harmful stereotypes of the Roma, or the dark-skinned elves being the only ones that are always evil, with one notable exception that nobody likes anyway, and you have a bunch of rules that seem to go against your stated values. That's one. Another one calls Drow, Vistani, and other troublesome races, calls them troublesome races. Well, I guess the Drow are troublesome if you're a hobbit living in Hobbiton and the Drow are raiding you and stealing hobbit babies. So where is D&D heading? This is another one. Well, Crawford has said that moving forward they will be keeping humanoids in line with the intentions of the Monster Manual, that any creature with a humanoid type should have the full capacity to be in alignment. Crap. And that leads to something. The things that they're having all these problems with the exception of the Drow, because I know the Drow, TSR was doing the Drow shortly after I left, Vistani and all this other shit, This is all crap that WotC added. So if they're having problems with it, it's not our fault. Okay, where do orcs come from? That seems to be the one that has a slightly legitimate question to it. Where do orcs come from? It's pretty much accepted that in writing his book, Tolkien, the orcs are the Huns. They're the people that are bayoneting babies and killing nuns and doing horrible things, which they actually did. They actually did that. Horrible things. Drow are a dark, perverted race of elves, essentially. I mean, H.G. Wells had well, I don't remember right now the two names of the upper people and the lower people, and one there's the other ones, was that demeaning to albinos? I'm truly at a loss as to why people are having a problem with this. Now, I've advocated on this program to read Heitz's and Nichols' books about dwarves and elves, because it'll give you or orcs and dwarves, because it'll give you a new perspective, well worth having, and it will make you look at orcs differently. But orcs are ugly. Orcs have long teeth, and yeah, I mean, I other than being the embodiment of a nebulous fear of the Hun, gnolls. There was some talk about gnolls, and people want them to just be vicious little brutes that are the result of rape and stuff. And I don't know why all of a sudden it's part of this woke stuff. Monsters are monsters. What is the problem with how monsters are something we fear? And no, I'm not going there about, oh yeah, these things in Strahd were the gypsies because we fear the gypsies. Crap. Nobody's been afraid of the Roma in 150 years. And then it was only if you lived in Europe and a bunch of them happened to camp out in your woods and free up some of your livestock to feed themselves with. But that was their culture. Now I probably get comments from gypsies. I think everybody's just going a little too far with this. And let me say something here right now. I very well know what's going on right now in this country and across the world. Keep in mind that I have 17 people I consider my family, my wife, my descendants. 9 of them are black or part black. So I think I got a better insight on what's going on than a lot of smug white people do. So don't go throwing that shit at me. Monsters are monsters. Are you going to go back and rewrite all of Grimm's fairy tales? This is getting a little out of hand when monsters in a fantasy game are getting all this unnecessary attention. Let's see, there's one other thing here. Okay, so to follow up on this is somebody making a prediction. Things WotC will probably remove from D&D eventually. Races, classes, and genders. It's segregation and profiling. Assassins, fairly obvious. Religion, again, obvious. ability score bonuses and penalties. After all, we're all equal. What a damn boring world it would be if we were all the same and all equal. I mean, there's been a lot of really good dystopian science fiction written about that. Where does it stop? This isn't that far off. Races, classes, and genders. Yeah, it's segregation and it's profiling. Yeah, Rangers, because they have favorite enemies, that makes them racist. I don't know. Nothing I've read about Rangers says that they only like to kill people of, a certain pigmentation. If it's monsters they like killing, so what? They're monsters. We're losing sight of this. This is stuff that's been brought on by later editions. The proliferation of character classes. And at some point, we got to wonder, where does this all end? I guess we could all get together and roll up characters, and we could all be toddlers, and we could all go play at the sandbox. And then, ooh, somebody found the cat turd, and ooh, Billy took my shovel. And we could have little fights like that. But then, well, you see where I'm going. Come on. Is it, who's, at the risk of being somewhat sacrilegious, which groups are complaining? Did Gypsies write letters to WotC or the Roma? Did they write letters to WotC and say, we think that we're them and therefore you're making fun of us? I think here again, we've got a bunch of social justice warriors reading stuff into it that isn't there. They put it there. I can't ever remember at TSR inventing a monster that we patterned on some race. What evil stereotype are the gnomes? I mean, they're nice. What stereotype are the fae? For the most part, the majority of tales and stories about the fae have them nice and lovely and laughing and tinkling, Tinkerbell. But lots of other stories about the fae have them mischievous and cruel and prankish. There won't be anything left. We can't go fight kitties and puppies because that would bring down the well-deserved ire of the animal protectionists. We can't fight aliens because now we're going to be in science fiction. But I wonder how many sci-fi authors and game designers have to worry about mutants and aliens being stereotypes. Come on, people. Now, I know this isn't an old guard issue, but I was on Grog Talk the other night for a long time, and we talked about it then. How politically correct do we have to get? Why does it bother people so much? I have an answer, I think, for that. It's because they've got too much personality, time, and their life invested in a fictional being that only exists on a flat piece of paper comprised of nothing but numbers. They're an algorithm. I think that's a problem, that people are so intensely about that. All right, that's all for gaming tonight. I'm saddened to see that people are being idiots and not practicing safe social distancing. I found out last night I live in a hot spot. My area code is a hot spot. My zip code is a hot spot, and I'm surrounded by 3 others. Wear a mask. You're not depriving the world of your beauty by wearing a mask. You might be showing your disdain for Donald Trump, but you're also practicing safe social distancing. This thing isn't over. There's not going to be any more cons this year. The orange idiot wants to hold a rally. Let him. Stay safe. Don't do silly stuff. Wear the mask. When I go out in public and when I see a mask, I think, not that my opinion of you matters any more than you care to, I think there's an intelligent person, and I want to say thank you, though you couldn't. You want to say thanks. You're looking after yourself and you're looking after me. Now, when I see the barefaced person, I wonder at their level of education, their level of comprehension. I go, when we go out on our weekly forays, our foraging trips, recent trips to the grocery store, 95% of people, of course, it's 2 days after we were told we were a hotspot, are wearing masks. I go to Walmart, 40% of them aren't. Some of them are whole families. And I look at them and I bite my tongue every time because I want to ask them, are you crazy? Endangering yourself and your kids? Because if kids get it, boy, they get some horrible stuff. They get horrible complications. And whereas it might not kill them, gives them complications they live with for the rest of their life. I want to run the risk of being indicted for assault and just slap all these moms out there with their 3, 4, 5 kids in the basket at the grocery store, none of whom are wearing masks. We're smarter. We're gamers. That's our conceit. We're smart people. Cover up. The project in Texas is going ahead. There's going to be a constant presence of organized games through North Texas RPG Convention. I'm going to be running 1 or 2 a month. It's going to be the first, hopefully it's trying to be the first bulletin board to go find a game to play that no longer relies on, can I get there? Can I drive there? Do I have a ride? Will the buses run that late? Nothing like that. Sit down on your computer, click, 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 doo-doo, and you're playing, and you're having fun. And okay, we don't get to hug, and we don't get to backslap, but I find that just the conversation that can flow around the screen can be a pretty good substitute. So keep your eye out for that. I think you go to tabletop events, look up North Texas. Right now, they only allow postings for 10 days at a time. So Doug's breaking them up into 10s, and he's trying to talk them into letting him do 30-day postings. So we can just book a month, and then you can go at the beginning of the month or whenever and see, okay, what's coming up. And at a time, on a day that you can deal with it. I'll probably do a weekend game and a middle of the week game. I don't know. I'm still trying to get mine off the ground, but I think I'll get mine off the ground going through Texas. So watch out for that. Stay safe. Practice social distancing. Sleazing your elbow. And wash your hands a bunch. And Dodata Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Called in Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Tight with tramp under a tree, high as could be.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Curmudgeon.